Before we get into this, the first thing I want to say is that I'm not making this review to persuade you or change your mind about the movie. If you haven't seen the film, give it a watch, especially if you're a Marvel fan. Form your own opinion, come back, and we can have a discussion in the comments about the potential future of the MCU and where they may go after this. Quite a few people I know really enjoyed this film, but I didn't. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania represents everything I don't want from the MCU. In the film's goal to be an Avengers-level film, the charm that I associated with the Ant-Man movies disappeared. Am I just being too critical? Is it franchise fatigue? I'm not too sure. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania does not resonate with me at all. The focus on the future, building up storylines that will eventually culminate into an epic finale, it's what Marvel is known for at this point. But I feel that focus sacrifices this film from being a worthwhile experience. And what could have been a great story about family and fatherhood ended up being a 2-hour trailer for Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Jonathan Majors once again steals the spotlight in his only second MCU appearance, and he's proven that he's a force to be reckoned with in the current Hollywood landscape. His on-screen chemistry with Michelle Pfeiffer is the greatest part of the film. Janet Van Dyne is my favorite of the main cast because Michelle's performance just adds so much to the character. Together, they deliver one of my favorite moments in the entire MCU and in the entire film. But the rest of the movie falls completely flat in comparison. Kang the Conqueror is a fantastic villain, but building him up shouldn't take away from Scott and Hope's story. The film is called Ant-Man and the Wasp, and yet I couldn't tell you one meaningful scene that adds to either of their characters. You could replace Hope with a cinder block and the film would be exactly the same. She wasn't given anything to do here. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was everything I wanted in an MCU film. It told a real story about grief and pain. Shuri was an excellent protagonist. Her beliefs that go against Wakandan tradition make her a more vengeful hero than T'Challa ever was, and learning the lesson that her brother had learned once before was incredible and meaningful character writing. Quantumania should have been a film about lost time. Being gone for 5 years should put a strain on Scott and Cassie's relationship. He missed out on a good chunk of her life, and she's grown without him. Grown into a woman with her own beliefs and mindset, one that Scott needs to learn to accept. He needs to embrace that she's no longer the little girl he sees her as. Their arcs should be similar and mirror that of Hope and Janet, who also have lost time with each other. Cassie wants to be a hero just like her father, and maybe his teachings would be a way to build their relationship back up throughout the movie. Hope and Janet would have similar arcs with each other, so by the end, when they come together as a family to fight off Kang, it would feel a lot more meaningful and impactful. But to me, they don't feel like a family. Instead, these people all feel like coworkers just going through the motions of another day job. In the film, everything is fine. Scott and Cassie get along perfectly, and we have nothing to worry about. No stakes, no emotional center. The film just takes you from scene to scene until it is over. By the end, I felt empty. Am I asking too much for a movie about Ant-Man to be smaller? Am I asking too much for a movie about Ant-Man to be about Ant-Man? There's a great film hidden underneath all the exposition, all the CG, and all the quips and jokes. A story where Cassie learns that she doesn't have to do everything on her own, but she can now rely on her father to help her when she needs it. A story where Kang the Conqueror manipulates Scott into helping him so he can recover the time he had lost, instead of using basic threats against his family to manipulate Scott into doing his bidding. A story with real emotion and weight. A story that would have highlighted the man in Ant-Man. There's nothing wrong with wanting to plant the seeds for future installments or introduce new story threads, but the main focus of the story should be the characters and the theme that ties up the story, in this case a theme of lost time. Iron Man 2 suffered from similar issues. It's an entertaining film and I really enjoy it, but the film is at its worst when it's trying to be an Avengers teaser rather than a story about Tony Stark. Even Spider-Man No Way Home managed to balance fan service with a satisfying story and contributed to the overall narrative of the MCU. The film managed to be a fun thrill ride that celebrated 3 generations of Spider-Man actors while telling a story about sacrifice. It introduced us to the multiverse and planted the seeds for a new beginning. Quantumania is supposed to be the film to get us excited and pumped for the rest of Phase 5 and the Multiverse Saga, but with a start like this, I have no hope. If all we're getting is big, bombastic, soulless CGI fests, I don't want any part of it. With the MCU, I'll always appreciate the smaller, more intimate moments between characters. I've had my fill with the Infinity Saga. I don't need to see hundreds of heroes on screen together to feel excited. What I want is a well-crafted story that can immerse me in the world of the MCU and get me invested in the characters. Marvel can do better than this. Marvel has done better than this. Releasing this film right after, in my opinion, one of the best MCU films is quite embarrassing. I meant it when I said Black Panther Wakanda Forever should be the standard for the MCU going forward. After all, I fell in love with this franchise for the characters and for their story. At best, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania is a mindless action comedy. Perhaps my low expectations were still too much.